I am so fucking stoked! The sequel to one of my favorite horror games, Little Nightmares 2! A lot of people aren't too familiar with the original, and it's a shame because it's one of the most aesthetically pleasing and simultaneously unsettling games I've ever played. So I was super excited to see what the new one had in store for me. And it did not disappoint. I caked my pants more than once. I was afraid the game wouldn't be able to duplicate that uneasy, nervous feeling from the first, but it does, and in fact improves upon it. Little Nightmares 2 is a 2.5D puzzle platformer, and honestly this is the biggest failure. The mechanics are still floaty and clunky as all hell, and most puzzles are simplistic, if not outright boring, which is much like the first game. But that game is, 5 years old now? So that makes this game feel that much more dated, honestly. It feels like a real missed opportunity, and I have some ideas on how to fix it, but we'll get to that later. You may be surprised to learn, especially if you played the first, that Little Nightmares 2 has a story. It's a vague, obscure, abstract story, but it is there. The bullet points are you're a new character and you rescue the protagonist from the first game. You then proceed to explore this Tim Burton-esque nightmare of a city to defeat the Tall Thin Man. You'll explore various cliché horror locations until you eventually lose your friend to the Tall Thin Man. You rescue her one last time, and just as you're escaping, she drops your ass into the abyss. It's quite the what the fuck moment. Time passes and the boy becomes the Tall Thin Man. Whoa, what a twist! Even though I saw it coming the whole time. I tease, of course. But I was shocked and confused when that first game bitch pulled a Mufasa and dropped my ass. Either way, the story is pretty take it or leave it. And this is because the most crucial thing that this game needed to get right is atmosphere. And they fucking crush it. Each area is terrifying in its own way. The asylum in particular made me bake a double chocolate in my pants. I think this is the best part of Little Nightmares as a series. They aren't quote-unquote scary, but they're creepy as hell. You really don't like what's happening on the screen. It can be uncomfortable in a skin-crawling kind of way. Not just visually, but also the music. It's creepy the way Coraline is creepy, or little girl ghosts. I feel like you're learning too much about me right now, so let's wrap up the review part. Little Nightmares 2 is a solid sequel, driving home the nails it's supposed to. However, I was left wanting, especially when I think about it in terms of gameplay and puzzles. It felt like this game could have easily been just DLC instead of a sequel, and that left me a little disappointed. But I still really enjoyed my time overall, so let's give it an 8. However, I have some ideas on how to fix this game! Now, the platforming is pretty stiff, much the same way Limbo or Inside was pretty stiff. Haha, stiff. Get it? Okay, calm down. Now, it would be pretty easy to just say tighten up the platforming, but I won't do that. Instead, I would recommend keep the platforming the same and instead change the fail situation. Because honestly, the clunkiness only really comes into play during chase sequences. There will be these moments where the adults will be chasing you and you'll have to platform away. And you have to be just about perfect with your timing and jumps or you will be crushed. So my plan is to make it so you don't have to be perfect. Seriously, adding 1 second to these fail times would do the trick. On top of that, I would put more easy puzzles into these chases. The kind of puzzle where you almost instantly see the solution and you just have to go and do it. This would add a sense of urgency since the chases themselves would be a little easier. But now you'd still have that panicking, rushing, and hurrying, but you wouldn't die and retry because you weren't perfect. That also keeps things fresh because the rule of scary is little to no repetition. The more times you see something, the less scary it is, and the more annoying it becomes. This could prevent that feeling and instead highlight these chases as really awesome moments for the game. This brings me to my second idea. I like the idea of rush puzzles during chases, but the game also needs more clever, difficult puzzles during the rest of the game. The only solid puzzle was the chess piece puzzle, I thought. I would have liked some more of these kinds of puzzles. And you could still keep the puzzles creepy. Something like finding pieces of a dismembered baby doll that would cry each time you find another piece, and like they're all hidden in a nursery that's been ransacked with shadows dancing on the walls. Like, it doesn't have to have that sense of urgency as the chases, but it still instills that same familiar feeling of, I don't want to be here. Lastly, I would do something to help with the cohesion of the game. I really feel like this game is just made up of separate, unique areas that could honestly be in any order or just be DLC separately. I have an idea that could unify them together into a world instead. The answer to me is the mechanics. Each area has its own mechanics, such as combat with a hammer in the school or a flashlight to keep enemies at bay who are sensitive to light. I like this idea a lot, but the mechanics are abandoned with each new area. I don't like this. There should be an escalation instead. The old mechanics should make appearances in the new ones, along with an overarching mechanic used by the tall thin man and the main character to hint at their big twist reveal. This would make it feel more like a complete cohesive game to me. Actually, let me go ahead and toss one more change in there. Co-op. There are two characters in this game working together for much of the time. I think this is a real missed opportunity. Puzzles and gameplay could be expanded dramatically in a co-op experience. The only issue I have with this is if it should be forced co-op or not. I'm not sure. Otherwise, the end and opening of the game would change. I'm not sure about this one. Now that I've said it out loud, I don't know, maybe. Maybe. In the end, though, I do believe these tweaks could help put Little Nightmares into the upper echelon of 2D atmospheric platformers. As it stands, it's a competent sequel, but I would love to see the series take the next step, even if it's a clunky step.